Hey everyone, it's me Astrid. Today I wanted to talk to you about some of my orchids. But first I wanted to let you know that there will be a few sound issues. One being that I live right next to a bathroom, and the other being that I live right next to an elevator. These may cause some light ambient noise, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Additionally, my voice is a little bit tired, so I may cough, but I will try to do this into a pillow so it's soft and light and appropriate for an ASMR video. All that aside, I wanted to talk to you about orchids. So, the first orchid you're seeing now is a Dendrobium phalaenopsis orchid. This orchid is warm growing. It likes plenty of sunshine. It stays evergreen for several years. And it has nothing to do with phalaenopsis orchids, actually. The only similarity that they have is that the flowers appear similar on some Dendrobium phalaenopsis orchids and other phalaenopsis orchids. This one is a no ID, meaning we don't know any of its parentage. We just know that it's a Dendrobium phalaenopsis. The specifics have been lost somewhere. That doesn't make it a less special orchid, and many orchids people grow are no IDs. Now, I'll read to you some things the American Orchid Society has to say about Dendrobium orchids. It says that they're a diverse genus of orchids with many different cultural needs. For example, I have a Dendrobium kinkianum, a Dendrobium antinatum, and Dendrobium phalaenopsis orchids, and they all require different care in spite of being dendrobiums. For example, the antinatum can be free flowering throughout the years. It also falls into the spatulata cultivar of dendrobiums. These dendrobiums tend to have very cute curly antennae or antelope-like horns, and I really love them. I have one in the background that you can't see, but it's about to bloom, which is exciting. Dendrobium kinkianums like to have a cool winter rest. They like to be very cold for a while, and that will trigger them to bloom very well in the springtime. However, Dendrobium phalaenopsis, or Pickipa, doesn't have any rest period at all. So, you can keep it growing all throughout the year, and it won't have any issues. Now, orchids have special features that make them orchids, and one is the flower shape. If we look at this flower, we can see 1, 2, 3 sepals in order, and 1, 2, 3 petals in order. Additionally, orchids have a hinged lip that allows bugs and other little creatures to crawl in and pollinate them. This hinged lip is a special feature for orchids. Many of them have it. Additionally, orchid flowers have a total of 6 petals and sepals combined, although in some species this is fused, so you can't see all of them, but they're still considered to be an orchid. Also, orchid flowers have unilateral symmetry, meaning they'll only appear to be symmetrical in one direction, which is from top to bottom. With that defined, we can begin to appreciate the beauty of different orchids and see what makes them specifically an orchid. Now, this Dendrobium phalaenopsis is very pretty, but it doesn't have any fragrance. maybe a light smell. But I'll show you a daytime fragrant orchid, which I have in bloom. That is my Ivanagara apple blossom. Now, the Ivanagara apple blossom orchid has ARA at the end of the name, and it was pointed out to me by another orchid grower on YouTube called Holy City Orchids that any parentage that ends in ARA is very, very, very complexly hybridized. What this means is that it's so different to anything you might find in nature because of its parentage that it needs to have its own special category. This orchid is also known as a Leonora. It requires care quite similar to Cattleya orchids because most of its parentage is right within the Cattleya family or genus. Cattleya orchids are pronounced properly Cattleya, not Cattleya or any other pronunciation, because the man who claimed to discover them was named Catley, so we pronounce it Cattleya. Cattleya, my goodness. There are 6 different genera in this orchid's parentage. They include Cattleya, Calotheron, Garyanthi, Laelia, Rhyncholalia, and Sophrontis. Pardon me if I mispronounced any of those. I'm reading this from a book called Bloom Again Orchids, 50 Easy Care Orchids that flower again and again and again. This orchid is very, very easy to grow. It's great for almost anyone. It just likes lots of sunshine, as much as you can give it without giving it a sunburn. Yes, plants do sunburn. It likes a bark media, and it likes to be watered and allowed to dry out for the most part between waterings. I don't know what this means for everyone's climate, but for me it means I water it about once a week or a little bit less. I may have to water it more in the summertime. I'm just gonna take a second and mist my orchids. There we go. Now, the fragrance of this orchid is just wonderful. For me, it smells like strawberry milk, although the book I was reading to you from describes it as Lucky Charm cereal with a little bit of orange peel mixed in. I think that's also a very good description. I also love this orchid, even if it didn't have a fragrance. I love it for the color of the flowers. Just the way that they're colored, they sparkle a bit. I don't know if you can see them sparkling, but they also always appear to be glowing to me. They just have this really amazing look, and I think I would love to get a tattoo of these flowers someday. They're one of my absolute favorite orchids of all time. And many people would describe these orchids as a must-have in any collection because they're so beautiful, so easy to grow, and so wonderful smelling. Now, let's bring another orchid out, and I'll show you a nighttime fragrant orchid. This is a Brassicatlia pinosa crossed with a Brassivola little stars. This orchid is just stunningly gorgeous. I love all of its freckles. I love its little spade-shaped lip. This orchid is in the Brassivola nighttime fragrant, like I said. In my opinion, this orchid smells like clean baby diapers. It also smells like this soap that I got at Fred Meyer. I think it's called Briar soap or something. But it smells like mint and basil, and I think it smells just quite a lot like this orchid. So, at nighttime, when the sun starts to go down, I'll start just smelling and noticing a wonderful smell in my room. This orchid develops its fragrance at nighttime because its pollinators are out at night. Other orchids generate their fragrance in the daytime because they're bee pollinated. However, daytime fragrant orchids tend to fall into two categories: bee pollinated orchids, bee pollinated fragrances, or carry-on fragrances. Carry-on fragrances tend to come from orchids in the Bulbophyllum genus. These can include anything from dog breath to the smell of rotting corpses, rotten meat, and so on. I've not had the displeasure of smelling any of these, but because their pollinators tend to gravitate toward decaying things, they produce that fragrance. Because bees tend to gravitate toward sweet things, bee-pollinated orchids tend to have sweet fragrances, which I think is rather interesting. A special note about moth-pollinated orchids is that Charles Darwin discovered an orchid. I believe it's in the Angraecum family, but I could be mistaken. But it had a very, very long tube at the back of the flower, curling under the bottom. And based on his theory of evolution, he hypothesized that because this flower had such a long tube to get to the nectar, there must be some kind of insect or creature that would have such a long tongue that it could reach down into this orchid and get at that sweet nectar. Many years later, such a moth was discovered. It's very hard to capture on film, and it had a little spiral tongue that it unraveled maybe 5 inches and stuck it down deep into this orchid. Amazing to see the co-evolution of these two animals, this animal rather, and this plant, how the plant that needed to be pollinated evolved such a niche for its pollinator. I think that's quite special. It's also special how many long petals orchids can develop, the different shapes of their lip. This orchid doesn't really have a hinged lip, meaning its pollinators are probably expected to crawl into the tube and go get the pollen and nectar that they're after. Well, that's about all I have to say about orchids for today. I could talk your ear off, but I've already done enough of that. If you have questions about orchids, you can always ask me on this channel or my main channel. Also, my friends on YouTube are Holy City Orchids and Miss Orchid Girl. They both have some really great videos and information, and Miss Orchid Girl especially is great at user interaction and answering everyone's questions. Thanks so much for watching. Happy tingles. Have a very nice day, and stay tuned for more videos coming in the future.